Hi, this is Joel Schumacher. I'm assuming that if you're listening to this, then you're interested in directors' commentaries on a film, and so I will try to make it interesting for you. When I was hired by Warner Brothers, the first thing I thought of is, we would do new titles for Batman Forever and for Batman and Robin so that you would feel that it was a new comic book. It's fun to design all these toys. I call them toys because this particular movie, because Batman Forever had been so successful and brought a lot of people back into the theaters, there was enormous pressure on us to create more inventions in the film that could be turned into toys. I learned a new phrase in my life called toyetic, whether a movie is toyetic or not, and how many toys people can get out of it. Hence, a lot of toys in this movie. There was also a great deal of, trying to think of exactly the right political words. There was a desire, let's say, from the corporate point of view, that we make as kid-friendly a Batman as possible, because many parents always complained about it being too dark for their children, that kids got too scared. I had hoped very much, after the success of Batman Forever, that the studio would allow me to do Frank Miller's comic book, Batman Year One, which is one of my favorite Frank Miller comics. I'm a great fan of his, and it would have been a much smaller, intimate, darker, younger Batman, but that is not really what my job was. And I'm not saying that I didn't come into this with my eyes wide open. I did, but there's a definite trend here to try to make the movie lighter, brighter, more kid-family friendly. I know that always disappoints a lot of the darker Batman fans, and anybody who knows a lot of my work knows it's pretty much on the dark side also. So this was definitely a new experience for me too. You get to blow up things when you're a director sometimes. So we just flew up a dinosaur. I had never done a sequel to my work before. I had been asked to do a sequel to St. Elmo's Fire and Lost Boys and Flatliners, even some of the others, but I remember those specifically, and I always thought that a sequel was a bad idea. And I really understand why now some sequels can be disappointing to the original, and that's because there is a push to make everything bigger and more, and everybody wants to make more money. And we had a lot of trouble on Batman Forever getting people to believe in us because they felt the franchise was dead, and I had to travel a lot to convince people to make a Batman movie or to carry a Batman movie or to do merchandising. So because anybody who did reluctantly climb on board with us on Batman Forever, they made so much money, then everybody wanted to be part of Batman and Robin. So there was, as you can see, a lot of things look like action toys and action figures, because I'm sure I don't have to tell you what kind of profits those toys make. There was a desire here to make everything fun and entertainment, enjoyable. You could bring the whole family, get kids excited. Of course, when you have Mr. Freeze, you're trying to deal with snow and ice all the time and trying to give each villain in Batman their own world. Just as the Riddler in Batman Forever was all about riddles, and the Joker did all those, practical jokes, and Catwoman was the most seductive feline in the whole world, and even purred, the beautiful Michelle Pfeiffer. And Harvey Two-Face was the dramatic schizophrenic in Batman Forever. You're trying to give this sort of Nordic ice and snow heavy feeling at the same time. Arnold, famous for his one-liners, is trying to make the most of it. Because there was an agenda for me to do a more kid-friendly movie, I went to the source. I went to my godson, who was about 6, and he was a huge fan of the TV animated series, which was so wonderful if you haven't seen it. It's really great. So a lot of these ideas come from him. We were running out of villains, I felt, and his two current favorites at the age of 6 were Mr. Freeze and Poison Ivy. And so I got all the comics on them. I got all the TV shows on them. And so some of this stuff is right out of the wonderful animated series. This is the creation of Bane. Because Poison Ivy is basically a character who is seductive and not violent. Her kiss is violent, but she isn't. I needed her to have a thug. And so Bane was perfect because Bane is just a big, lurking, monster who would do her bidding. She needed muscle.
I have spent my life trying to protect plants from extinction.
Like a lot of villains, not just in comic books, but in all drama, a lot of villains start out with some kind of passion and obsession for good, which ultimately turns evil. Because as we all know, genius is so close to madness.
Hear me?
I do think that Val was the best Batman of all the Batmen, for my own vote. But what I think George brought to it was a gentler, kinder, more compassionate, less tortured, less self-obsessed Batman. And I know some people really didn't like that. But I really don't see where the harm is. And also, it's a Batman movie. And if you really like dark movies, right after this I made 8mm. And you can go and see that, and it doesn't get much darker than that. I'm not pushing my own wares, I promise you.
Hello, Jason.
There's an effort to do maybe fun things for younger people, but then hopefully that some adults will enjoy some of Poison Ivy also.
Placed my blood with aloe.
This scene will not win the award for underacting, but hey, it's a comic book. So she is basically an eco-terrorist. So we thought, Akiva Goldsman, who wrote the script, and I thought, well, here you have this hothouse eco-terrorist, and then Mr. Freeze, who, represents the frigid, cold horror of freezing to death. And so, just giving you the hot and the cold to not sound too cliched. Akiva Goldsman was blamed a lot for the sort of lightness and humor and fun and games of Batman and Robin. But that's not fair. I take full responsibility. I mean, Akiva did write the script, but I shot it and worked with Akiva. So, if you love a movie, there are hundreds of people that made it lovable for you. If you don't like it, blame the director. That's what our name's there for. Almost every item you see here, they made masses of and sold at the Warner Brothers store. So it was kid-friendly, toy-friendly, and very merchandise-friendly.